It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Oh, let's review.
We'll analyze the scene.
Sounds holly jolly to me.
Before it's over, let's begin.
Bum.
Bum.
That's right, folks. Since the Christmas season is upon us, we thought the way to celebrate and get into the holiday spirit would be with some holiday reviews.
6 to be exact. Selected and arranged for your Yuletide pleasure.
So, silver up those bells, light the multicolored lights, and go out and build the snowman as we engage in some seasonal
Seasonal
shenanigans.
Shenanigans! You guessed it, tonight, for the 20th anniversary, we're talking Bad Santa. Yes, the very offbeat classic that was Elf's contemporary. Yeah. So, I guess to get the ball rolling, Rohith, so this is the first time you've seen Bad Santa, am I right?
Correct.
So, what'd you think?
It was about kind of what I expected. I think it's a movie that if you have a little bit of a low tolerance for things that are like overly cynical or just crass, this movie's not necessarily for you. But if you're kind of or have an open mind in terms of what the movie is attempting to do, I think this is kind of a very like it's like Elf meets Bad News Bears, and I think that's probably a pretty apt description of this movie. It's that the typical holiday aesthetics, the Christmas music, all that stuff. It's kind of contrasted with sort of the misanthropic energy that is the main character, Willie Stokes, as played by Billy Bob Thornton.
Yes, yeah. So, Bad Santa, it's kind of it's like the iconic irreverent Christmas movie. It's raunchy, it's dark, but it has a real solid and unconventional arc at its core. It's so funny seeing Billy Bob Thornton as this just this utterly just basically just this utterly disenfranchised, well, not even disenfranchised, just this utterly
Depraved,
despicable Santa Claus.
yeah, he's basically just
Basically a degenerate Santa. It's basically just seeing him as this degenerate Santa Claus.
yeah.
I think it's interesting that we really have like a thirst, for the anti-hero, and this is like right in the middle of that. Like the early, the 2000, like 2003. We're really like in the thick of like the anti-hero craze, which I think is going to help this flourish over the years. It's such a unique Christmas film, and it's very much like the other side of the elf coin from '03.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, we have a few comments here I want to highlight. Richard's Victims, classic piece of family media. That's one way of looking at it. I guess it depends on your family. Um, this is my kind of movie, to be honest. LOL. Cynical, irreverent Christmas movies are my niche. What can I say? So, you're in luck, sir. We are here to talk about that very thing, and you should do a 20th anniversary on the sequel in 2036. Yeah, good point. I don't know about that. We'll get into the. I'll touch on the sequel momentarily, but I guess let me tell you a little bit of how this thing gets made, Rohit. Let me tell you a little bit about the interesting backstory behind Bad Santa.
Hmm.
All right, so there are these two writers, Glenn Ficarra and John Requa, if I'm saying their names remotely right. These guys are kind of a writing duo. They've gotten around. They did very appropriately the remake that followed this of The Bad News Bears, which featured, you guessed it, Billy Bob Thornton,
Hmm.
and also Jungle Cruise. These guys have kind of an interesting and eclectic repertoire. They've done Cats and Dogs. Like they've gone all over the place with the kinds of movies that they've done. So Basically, they pitched Bad Santa to the Coen brothers in the hopes that the Coen brothers would kind of violate their rule of like, we usually we only direct what we write. They basically wanted the Coen brothers to direct this movie that they wrote, and hoped it would be so good, such an interesting idea that they would, what, we're gonna we're gonna break our one rule, to quote a famous movie. We're gonna do that.
Mhm.
But they ended up not doing it. It's like, guys, we love it, but we're going to stick to our guns on this. But here's what we are going to do for it. We want to be involved in this thing. So they help, the Coen Brothers, they would help write things a lot of the time, produce and do all sorts of stuff there. So essentially, they wrote a draft of it. They kind of punched up the dialogue, and that's why they're credited on the movie as producers. Not technically they are like additional writers, but there's like a whole Writers Guild of America thing back then where it's like, hey, we can only have so many names on the piece. So they're essentially they're one of the three sets of writers on this. Not going to say three sets of writers in the sense of, these guys bring it to the table. The Coen brothers do a punch up, and then the director kind of does his own punch up. So it's really just it's an evolution versus like too many cooks in the kitchen sort of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the script caught the attention of Terry Zwigoff. Now, Terry Zwigoff, he was a very interesting and eclectic director. This guy, over the years, he's an indie guy. He's an indie director who made very unique films. It originally started as like a documentary style. He did like Louie Bluey. The big thing he did that you might have heard of, Crumb, about I believe Walter Crumb, the illustrator, the comic artist.
Okay.
And then Ghost World and Art School Confidential. This guy, he picked very specific films, and he was offered a lot of biggies because of the success that he had in the indie circuit. He was offered Juno, believe it or not. Turned Juno down. He was offered a West Side Story remake, which years later Steven Spielberg did,
Mm-hmm.
and he was offered, believe big one, offered Elf. Was one of the directors who was offered Elf, and you can imagine there's a little bit of competition there
Yeah.
with this. So anyway, so basically, he's offered all these projects. He was looking to make a change. Like, I've done all these indie movies, which he basically made the movies that made him most happy. He's like, what, I want to do something that kind of challenges it. Maybe something like not like a big studio movie, but it's kind of like it's a rung up from what I usually do. And he went for it. The film was made by Miramax, which of course includes the Weinsteins, who let's just say they meddled post production, which caused an interesting wrinkle in history with Bad Santa. Before we get there, though, originally the role was envisioned for a fat Santa, and you had kind of more not necessarily plus size, but you had some bigger guys, bigger names, and bigger bigger builds with Jack Nicholson. At the time, he's getting back on a little bit of Santa poundage. Jack Nicholson being offered the role, you had Bill Murray being offered the role, and then you had James Gandolfini, who I want to say was probably the front runner. And they ultimately went with Billy Bob Thornton because of a Coen Brothers connection. He did this movie called The Man Who Wasn't There, and they loved him in it. And it's like, what, let's have him read for it, and they loved him in it. So Thornton got the job. Um, the kid, of course, we'll get to his name later, but the kid was inspired by the Little Rascals in terms of like, what do we want this kid to look like? We want to go for like the chubby kid from Little Rascals, the R Gang, back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony Cox. Tony Cox, he's been around whether you know it or not. He's been a whole bunch of things. I think most notably, Me, Myself, and Irene. He's the father of Jim Carrey's three sons in Me,
Yeah.
Myself, and Irene, very memorably. And also in Oz the Great and Powerful. I think that's the last thing I really saw him in. Sam Raimi movie. But before that, he's done a lot of suit work. Like he's in Beetlejuice. He's like a little ordained minister in Beetlejuice. He was in like one of the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi. He's gotten around. He's done a lot of stuff. But Tony Cox is kind of like he's a lifer. And apparently, these two big roles, the director had to fight the studio for because. Oh, sorry about that. What was the last thing you heard me say?
That the studio had to fight, or the directors had to fight tooth and nail for the two roles, or one of the two roles.
Yes, for Tony Cox and the kid.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah, to fight tooth and nail for him because they wanted I think there's actually I heard this. I don't know how true this is. I think the word on the street was that Mickey Rooney was supposed to. They wanted Mickey Rooney to play play our elf character, and he basically the studio probably wanted a big name for like the second banana role, and it's like no, we want the right person for the role, even if he is kind of essentially an unknown in Hollywood. It's like you know.
Mhm.
So he fought for him. The director was really sticking to his indie guns on this, which I think really gives voice to what the end result is. Sadly, John Ritter's last film. Of course, John Ritter famous for Three's Company. And okay, here's where I get into the meat potatoes before we just jump right into it. There are a lot of test screenings for this film, and as you can imagine, it was sorry. Sorry, as you can imagine, it was not initially well received. There were a lot of it was kind of hard to sell an audience on it,
Mhm.
at least in the test screening phase. And the Weinstein's kind of went into panic mode, so they forced changes into the movie, and this led to three cuts of the film. There are three cuts of this film. The theatrical cut, which presumably you and I both watched. There's the unrated version, Batter Santa, which basically is like it's the theatrical cut, but it's extended. So it's basically all the gags and like the cursing and everything. It's extended. Things go on a little bit, just kind of allowed to breathe. That's really the only difference there. And then you have the director's cut. And the director's cut stems from Terry Swigoff. He hated what the studio forced him to do. Like he was barely on set when he was like forced to shoot extra scenes that would be crowd pleasing, like like comedy scenes, and there like some sentimental things that are put in there. Like the guy has very dark comedy sensibilities, so he really stuff like just to give you some examples here. The movie opening on voiceover that we like in his director's cut years later is basically a lot of subtractions with the director's cut. He cut that out. Uh,
Okay.
the whole
That 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 actually, yeah. Now I think about it, that like it did the voiceover did was it like in the director was there's no voiceover at all.
Well, that's the thing. I know there wasn't any voiceover at the top. I suspect, I can only imagine structurally you kind of need it at the end, but there's a chance it might have all entirely. But I have not seen the director's cut, unfortunately, so I can't say having seen it firsthand. I've just heard that these were the changes that were made. I heard that we got rid of the voiceover, maybe all of it. At the very least, it did not open on voiceover.
Mhm.
We just basically opened on we opened on the heist, and then we just cut to him like in Mexico. We didn't even have like the bar celebration afterwards, like where you have basically Marcus spell out what the character flaws of Willie are. That wasn't there. There's they cut down some of the great comedy scenes between Chapeska and Jin, the Bernie Mac character, like the whole like a little bit of that at the top. Big thing. Okay, here's where the director really like dug his heels and like I hated this scene, hated that it was included in it. He hated the boxing scene. It was very mandated. The whole like punching everyone below the belt and everything. That was all. That was a studio like we need comedy in this movie. Like have them all hit each other below the belt. So stuff like that. He wanted the sentimental stuff like the whole Advent calendar plot lines completely out of there. There was no Advent calendar in the director's cut.
Really?
Yeah, so that's basically like a lot of Willie's arc. Apparently, was kind of trimmed down to its barest essentials. So yeah, and anyway, so a lot of subtractions like that in the director's cut. So it's a very interesting. I'm sure it'd be a very interesting viewing experience, like looking at this and then going to the director's cut to see a much darker film, presumably with a
I
lot of
guess
sentiment.
maybe it because I think it's like the way you describe it. I would have to obviously see the director's cut, but it just feels like a much more like it feels like less of a complete movie if it makes sense, right?
Well, I mean, it feels like already, I think here's the thing. Of the three versions, I think I haven't seen them, so I can't say. But knowing like the kind of like I've seen unrated cuts in my day. I've seen like what an unrated cut does, and what like an actual unrated cut versus usually an unrated cut is like just it's in most case with comedy, unrated cuts with comedies are purely just we just got a few extra curse words in there, maybe some nudity, and we've shown like the extended versions of scenes. That's really all. It's an extra. It's milking the cash cow.
Yeah.
So, and that's essentially what happened here. So, when this movie came out, it was quite successful, in competition with Elf, obviously. But I forget when both movies were released, but they were like the Christmas movies of that year. And obviously, Elf wanted to be a more kind of like universally kind of like kind of acclaimed kind of like holiday classic, where Bad Santa was kind of the cult holiday classic that kind of took on a life of its own. I don't mean cult in that it took. I guess cult's probably the poor choice of phrase, just given that usually it takes time to be appreciated. Like Bad Santa had a splash because like so rarely do you have an R-rated Christmas movie,
Mhm.
let alone a good one.
And it's a R-rated Christmas comedy and not like an R-rated Christmas horror movie.
Yeah, exactly. So it was very unique, and people took notice. And the Weinstein's basically saw like, hey, we can make money with the three cuts that essentially with the multiple cuts we can do here because we have the theatrical and the unrated, which is going to make us money. Then down the line, Swidoff probably around the 10th anniversary, I'd imagine he released the director's cut or however long it took him to do that. And so it was big on home video, no matter any way you slice it. So it's essentially that's essentially what happened there. But yeah, it does feel like the director's cut is I sounds like it's just cut to its barest minimum, but I feel probably is lacking a lot of the elements I really liked in the movie because I really do like the sentiment because I think it really helps get that. I really like Willie's arc in the movie, and it's not like a solid arc, but I like that it's an arc of like you can kind of piece together what's going on in that character's head, getting it from point A to point B, and I'm sure the director probably views it as like it's too spelled out, it's too obvious. Where I kind of like I like basking in those moments with that character. Anyway, one last thing. So there is a sequel, Bad Santa 2, it came out in 2016, and let's just say it lives up to the namesake. It is just bad. it is a Bad Santa 2.
So probably not no retrospective of that movie.
I mean, look, if I look, there are a few redeeming elements to that film, but I'm saying if you hold them up side by side, it's like does not it pales in comparison to this film. So it's like I would not vote for it given the choice. But if we're desperate for stuff for seasonal shenanigans, I won't say no, but I know it's not going to go over well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because this movie very much is kind of like a one and done sort of thing. Like revisit, it's like going back to the well after. Well, we told like the really good like one and done story, and then it's like, well, we've just like we have a very unconventionally happy end for this film,
Hmm.
and then it's like, well, we basically underwrite the happy ending at the top of the movie for two because otherwise we have no story. So it's one of those kind of situations, where it's like, well, we kind of took away a really good ending,
Hmm.
kind of Men in Black 2 to a degree.
It's kind of funny. They could have just done like had this movie been like a lot more successful, maybe it might have inspired like, oh, here's like raunchy irreverent takes on on holiday stuff, like an R-rated Easter Bunny movie or an R-rated like Halloween comedy or Valentine's Day. Like it is kind of interesting that like that like the appeal of this movie is like, hey, this holiday that's warm and sweet. Here's a guy that's just is a complete drunk and shouldn't be around children, and that's going to be the comedy for this movie.
Yeah. Kind of funny, we do have an R-rated Easter movie in Mallrats, set around Easter, and we beat up the Easter Bunny.
True.
A lot of cursing.
I feel like I feel like Die Hard's more of a Christmas movie than Mallrats is an Easter movie.
It's funny. Mallrats 2, had it been made, would have been Die Hard in a mall.
Oh man,
Not kidding. I was like actually what the plot was going to be
no,
until they
it's
lost the rights to make that.
yeah.
Okay, so let's break it down. So we'll just a little kind of cover in the movie here. So, um, aesthetically, I love kind of the almost Ren and Stimpy kind of vibe we have at the top here, where I love like the classical music and the artfulness. Like this feels like Swidoff's signature here. It feels like where it's like it's kind of like we're having like this great classical music. I think it's Chopin. I'm not sure. We have like Chopin or something playing
Mhm.
as we just have like this sad portrait of our broken down con man. Who's figured it's too late in his life to start over and try to change himself. So he's just leaning into it hard and just kind of doubling down on the misery. And he's a sad broken con man in a Santa suit.
Yeah.
So our opening, I think very smartly in the structure here, we show the mall SantaCon going right, with a lot of shades of Better Call Saul season 6, by the way, with like a kind of a mall heist of sorts going on here. Um, yeah, we have basically Lois, the Lauren Tom character. She cases the place. Marcus, he hides. In this case, in like an over the top, snowman costume, and he disarms the alarm with an arm. And Willie cracks the safe, and Bob's your uncle, and they celebrate the bar, and that's where we have kind of our we have Marcus, kind of like laying out all of Willie's various character flaws.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like structurally how we kind of like set everything up here. We're okay, so we see what Willie's good at, and we address the character flaws and what this guy has an inability to change. Like literally just saying it, like you're Marcus says, here's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to blow through your money on booze, most likely. You're not going to do all the things you say you're going to do, like open like a little tiki bar by the beach and like probably marry a waitress. You're not going to do any of that. You're going to be desperately eager as heck when I call you to do this all over again next Christmas. He's absolutely right. It's an endless cycle.
Yeah, it's very much it made explicit sort of the self-destructive tendencies of Willie's personality.
Yeah. So the duo, let's talk about our duo here. So again, Billy Bob Thornton and Tony Cox. It's a marriage made in heaven. Am I right?
They have the right amount of like not necessarily respect, just like tolerance for each other
Yeah.
as as they're kind of just like they clearly are people that
They can't stand each other, but they need each other professionally, so they
yeah,
tolerate each other.
or in the case that like nobody else could stand them besides those two.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like it is kind of like the cat dog situation where they're just kind of stuck at the hip and have to kind
Hmm.
of work together.
Santa needs his elf, and what's the elf going to do without Santa?
Yeah, yeah,
I love visually, like I just love when we cut to like Phoenix, like during a heat wave in the parking lot. Is like you have like the skinny gaunt Santa Claus just walking down smoking, while you have like the little black dwarf as an elf with like the great little details that he has like these little elf ears, but they're white.
yeah,
So that it just I just love it's like it's almost like a can you spot the difference thing of like here where's the Norman Rockwell painting going wrong here? Like
yeah,
what's so very funny visual, just the degenerate Santa and his elf. Um, and it's the fact that Santa's an utter unmitigated mess and the elf is trying to prop him up for the con just to get through it. The fact that I love seeing this in seeing the con at the opening of the film go right. We see that Willie's becoming more and more unreliable and unhinged, which basically shows us why there's going to be a double cross by the end of the movie. Is that Willie is getting worse, and like we see him, like he's at least he's like kind of tolerating the kids more at the beginning in the first heist. The second heist, he does not give a crap because he hates himself even more.
yeah. No, it was it was very much like it was very much a good decision for Billy Bob Thornton to be cast because he plays a level of like a I guess you could say a scumbag. He just played he in the first like half hour you can really buy just the level of misanthropy that's just in this character,
Mhm.
but he's not someone that is like for whatever reason, there is this kind of magnetic charm to him, even though by all intents and purposes, on paper, he should be someone that should repel people left and right.
I think it's like because deep down, like it's kind of the Curb Your Enthusiasm principle, where we love Larry David because he's saying what we all kind of wish we could say to people without consequence. It's
But I think that I think that's true to a certain extent. But I think for Willie's character in this movie, there's that, and there's also got like a pathetic like puppy quality. Like you almost feel bad for how like crappy their life is or their lot in life is, and so you can't help but like share some love or care toward it.
Which again, I think the opening monologue does kind of like set up. It is, okay, this guy, had no, essentially no father, and the only thing his father told him was like, like how to crack a safe when he wasn't cracking his head. So it's like this guy really had no real life opportunity aside from like criminality. Because again, the world's been so cruel and dark to him, like in that childhood innocence. And I love how the strongest component of the film is him with the kid. But building to that, just him with the kids. What's really fun to me is just Billy Bob Thornton's dynamic with all these random kids, and just like it's like the grounded mall Santa nightmares come to life, where you get a sense like this probably happened to a mall Santa at some point. We're sort of taking all these experiences, but having the irreverent character like comment on them the way those mall Santas wish they could, where it's like kid with the ice cream cone sneezes in his face. Like you have like the weird kid asking for the Fraggle Stick car.
And just like I appreciate I'm trying to think what there's one kid that like had like a very unique or no, I'm just gonna try to think of it and hopefully I'll find the answer. But I appreciate like the way in which like Willie Billy Bob Thornton's character Willie Stokes is just like he has the kids and he just like allows a few seconds to say the thing, says some BS, and then just moves on and just keeps like rolling. Uh, and and the one thing that actually stood out to me is like the fact that like he urinated on himself
Mm-hmm.
and like nobody seemed to ever comment and notice that. Not like the kids, and the parents, like not even like employer stuff. And it's like it is a darkly comedic thing to occur.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with the reality of the film, like you kind of wonder if there was just maybe a little bit too unrealistic to have Willie be so openly like awful like from the start.
It is a bit of a plot hole when you think, okay, so one of the big plot points is that, he's doing these surly, unsanta like things, but technically, he's not like he's not. They say he's not cursing around the kids, but we see him very clearly cursing around the kids. So the fact like Chapesca's looking for reasons to fire him, but he can't. It's not technically a fireable offense that he's like physically caught him doing. But that's the thing. We're seeing him get away with cursing around the kids though. So it's a bit of a conflict if you want to like pull the string. It's like, well, I mean, he's like the parents aren't around to hear that. Only the kids are. But you think the kids would repeat a little bit what Santa said to him.
Oh man, that is such a missed opportunity for good comedy.
Yeah. I mean, you'd think so. Again, that one's kind of like you kind of need it so you have a movie. So, anyway, so circling to the important, the kid. So, key to the film, we have this kid. Well, it was the Guild Thurman, who we're gonna learn later with the sad tragic punchline of that name.
Mhm.
So Thurman, he's not all there. This kid's wonderfully cast, by the way. He did an excellent league, and this kid is absolutely like Jar Jar, only actual this time. He actually is the key to the movie.
Yeah.
Like he's not all there, but there's like this interesting connection forged between him and Willie because he keeps asking Santa these questions, and the fact that we've kind of seen the dynamic that he had with the kids is like there's either just disdain for the children or is like a tolerance like a degree of tolerance like he'll entertain the whimsy because he's just basically biding time until the heist like oh yeah sure whatever like he'll there's like a degree of patience he has towards each kid and Thurman brings this interesting challenge of like he's asking Santa all these questions and he's kind of entertaining with like these wise guy answers and the kid's just not registering any of it. Now my read on on why this dynamic works. And I think what the movie's getting at is that these two characters kind of need each other in a cosmic sense. They've been either abandoned by society or have abandoned society themselves. Like Thurman's been abandoned. Willie has abandoned society, and there's like a sad loneliness between them. And boiled down, this kid takes all the verbal and again physical abuse by the other people, but even by Willie's. This kid takes all of Willie's abuse, and he just keeps taking it. And I think Willie sees a kernel of his own of himself and like his childhood of like taking the abuse from his father and probably his life just beating him down, and the fact that this kid just like he's just unaffected by it I think there's maybe on some level respect for it, but is also he sees like a helplessness to this kid that he kind of wants to save himself by saving the kid. Like, does that make any sense?
No, I see what you mean because it's like I think for me, like the film makes the kid out to be dumb, but when you
Mhm.
look at but I think to the scene where he has the report card, he has all C's the first
Yeah.
quarter, and the second quarter is all C's and a B, and it's like that doesn't come up to me as like unintelligent. He may
No,
not.
no, he's not unintelligent.
I
Yeah,
think
that's the,
it's kind of just more like he is
we have the
naive.
checkers gag. He's really good at checkers.
Yeah, but he is kind of like naive is kind of I think what the film's trying to get at more.
Mhm.
And he has sort of this like Pollyanna, Pollyanna, or just very optimistic view of the world, and he believes in the magic of Christmas. And Willie's just like constantly telling him, "It's like, are you just messing with me, kid? Are you just trolling me?"
Yeah, this kid is like, they're the antithesis of each other. The guy dressed in the garb of Christmas spirit who has no Christmas spirit whatsoever, and this kid who's like he's got the Advent calendar and he thinks he's like pounding around Santa, at least initially.
Mhm.
But I think like we established later in the movie, he figured it out. He knows like, yeah, I know you're not Santa, but still, we're friends. It's like my friend who happens to look like Santa Claus. You know.
Yeah,
Okay, so jump around for a second here. So the waitress played by Lauren Graham, Sue the waitress. She's got a Santa kink. So in a sense, she's odd, but it's like it's kind of in parallel to Thurman. Like there's an odd but endearing trait about her, and that in what she's into, and it's a nice introduction between her and Willie. And we had already established that Willie is like his fantasy dream was to marry a waitress. So in a sense, he is kind of this movie builds to a point of like Willie getting what he wanted. So in a sense, he could start over, or at least he's
yeah.
getting a taste of what life
No, no,
could
no.
have been.
But what's funny is that like these are essentially kind of like childhood dreams or aspirations that are like made into this very adult like kink or fetish kind of a deal.
Yeah,
And I what I think was funny was that like I knew of this movie and the scene where where Sue and Willie hook up
mhm,
and what she says in the car, like that's a scene I've seen like plenty of
yeah,
times. But what I appreciated in watching the movie from start to finish was like her reasoning why she or her explanation for why she has like a Santa fetish, and that's like her being Jewish and
yeah.
like something forbidden that he can that she couldn't have. Which I guess in regards to Willie, like you kind of wonder if that's sort of the same kind of logic. If it's like for a reason there was a girl that he could just never have who happened to be a waitress, and that's something that just kind of feed through his logic.
It's kind of a twofer. It's like one, he can't have her because, well, again, the only way he can have her is if he does the Santa thing, which again is
Mhm.
like yet another reason for him to glom onto this gimmick, which already is an interesting idea. But beyond that, I think there's a really interesting scene later where Willie, think about this. Later on, like he has, she comes to the house. They do it in the jacuzzi, and then she leaves. But he really likes this girl. You get a sense, and after he has like a moment, like a twinge of happiness. She leaves, and then he rips open the advent calendar and eats the candy. And you would wonder, as an audience member, why does he do that? Why does he destroy the kid's happiness? Why does he do something so despicable? Why does he eat the again? Of course, you could easily write off. He just doesn't. He's drunk as a skunk. He doesn't care. But I think really it's that he it's a reminder like him feeling happiness makes him hate himself, so he does something mean just to justify like I'm a bad guy, eats the candy.
Or it could be that his shitty behavior is kind of like it's like a maladjusted coping mechanism.
Yeah, that's the thing. So it feels like again that's kind of him to a degree. It's like him like doubling down like like the old patterns of behavior.
Hmm.
Also, I mean, there's the other thing we should probably like call out now. I mean, there's a lot of parallels to the Grinch here. I mean, like Willie and the kids, very much the Grinch and Cindy Lou Who. There's a lot of I guess specifically the other. Well, I guess those 2000 technically, but the Jim Carrey Grinch, a little bit of that in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Anyway, so speaking of which, so speaking of unconventional meetings, so we have the very unconventional bonding moment between Willie and the kid. When we have the best way to describe it, the Indian guy from Office Space tries to violate Santa Claus to prove that he's not gay.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid kind of intercepts and helps save him, and they kind of bond. He's like takes him to the nice empty house, and we have like the Cindy Lou Who moment of like, oh yeah, the house is empty. This is a great visual gag. The fact that Willie has like the ski mask and like the blackjack hand. He's ready to do something just horrible and despicable right now.
And the grandma just walks by, sees him, and is like, "Oh, I'm gonna go make you a sandwich."
That's the great Cloris Leachman. Yes, so yes, there's a whole runner with the sandwiches too. It's a little arc with the sandwiches. It's kind of like I can't really explain why. It just kind of works. Like it's all about like this. It feels like I wonder if it's that the grandma's like on autopilot making the sandwiches, and Thurman is kind of like as kind of determined. This is like okay, I'm gonna. This is how you treat company and guests and everything. This is how this is like the only human connection he's kind of had is like sandwiches, and maybe that's him like extending that olive branch to his new friend. Like, hey, sandwiches. Would you like me to make you one?
Or maybe that's something his like dad or mom did for him growing up.
Yeah, it's possible. So yeah, so we have the advent calendar, which is nice, and I gotta be honest, man, I love Billy Bob Thornton's performance. Like the morning after, he's like, he's slept in the kid's house. Kid, brings it, tells him, walks him the whole advent calendar thing, and you have this thing where you can see him kind of with he's starting to come around a little bit. I think he's genuinely touched by the civility and the kindness this kid is like showing him of like, would you like the chocolate? No, you can have it. It's something, but he's not saying in like a crass way, like, oh, I don't want your stinking candy. He's like, yeah, no, you can have it. Like he's kind of, I don't know. He's like the kid is showing him. Kid's kind of helping out right now, so he's kind of like, yeah, sure. He's kind of going along with it.
I think what was really funny was that Billy Bob Thornton's character Willie's like and seeing this house like and it's just like, oh, I'm gonna rob it and then just be on my way. But something about that kid just kind of made him stay, and then basically like Billy just
It's like the kid. It's like too easy with the kid. The kid's like the easiest mark in the world, but he can't fully just like take advantage of him.
Yeah, I just think it's just not in his DNA to even think of those terms.
Also, maybe it's like on some level, it's like there's no challenge here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So also we kind of label the waitress Mrs. Santa's sister. Let's see. So I guess we should talk. Let's talk about the gift too. Like so, eventually, as the kind of the days go on here, the kid makes him a gift, and we had like this horrific like scene where like like the kid's like cut his hand. We don't know what he cut his hand on or for and everything, and like we see Willie failing miserably to be kind of like be a kind of a responsible adult here, and he's trying. He is making an effort though, which is interesting. He's like trying to sterilize it with alcohol. I should have mentioned that was going to sting a bit. He's botching it. He's botching the first day completely, but he feels genuinely bad about it, and like he is trying to make up for it later on. With the whole, he fixed the calendar. He made him a tostada, which his own version of the sandwich with bologna and like little salsa on it.
Yeah, Willie Stokes like frying or burning the bolognas to make them like hot dogs is like God. This is the cinematic shorthand for like being at your lowest end, being hitting rock bottom as an adult. Is that you're now heating bologna to be hot dogs you put in a sandwich or just on its own.
Yeah.
Both Willie Stokes and Johnny Lawrence, the beginning Cobra Kai.
Absolutely. Let's see. So, remind me, Rohith, have you watched Old Better Call Saul?
I have. I watched like 4 or 5 episodes of the first season, but nothing beyond that.
Okay, it's like there's a Better Call Saul alumni playing who plays Thurman's father. He's like one of the judges on Better Call Saul. It was kind of like it was blown away. Oh my god, it's him! A lot of familiar faces in this. You have like Alex Borstein, little cameo. Billy Gardenia as like the guard at the top, and obviously Lauren Tom.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk about our mall security. Let's talk about well his name. They didn't really call him by his name, but Jin, Mr. Jin, aka Bernie Mac. So Bernie Mac, he's having a lot of fun here.
Oh yeah.
He's blackmailing him so he can get in on the con. It's just this very
The probably one of the better scenes. It's like I want half. It's like look,
huff.
and it's like 33%, half.
So Marcus, despite all of his bluster and like seemingly he's the smooth talker, the man can't negotiate
Mm-hmm.
for anything. He's like terrible negotiator.
Oh yeah, but at the same time, it's like it's kind of proposed a particular outcome because really Bernie Mac's character has all the cards to the table. So hey, when he says half, it's pretty much half at this point.
Yep, and I just love when it gets like the 49%. Like, what's 1%? you know,
I did like his introduction or like Bernie Mac's character scene
the
where
kid
like
shoplifting, right?
yeah, and it's just like, hey, did you help? Like, no, I'm good. I'm good. Just looking at the games. Like, and then he like goes like, hey, you're sexually harassing me. Whatever. It's like, hey, you supposed the game out, and then he then pulls out all the other stuff, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, get out. It's like, can I keep? No, get out.
He takes like the thing his grandmother gave him, like little, not like I guess the equivalent to the Walkman, a little like
MP3 player, something like that. Yeah.
MP3 player. Great. So yeah, but it's also I love the dynamic he has with Chapeska here, where it's just like this runner of Chapeska has real. He has to come to this. Bernie Mac, of course, very respectful, very can be very intimidating. It's just going up to this guy and just trying to tell him those ridiculous things that he's observed this Santa doing. But of course, he has no real grounds for dismissal. But it's still like just really it's like he was basically giving a woman anal sex in the in the plus size women's department.
Like after that, it's like every woman can't shit properly for a week or so.
Exactly. This is the fact he has to explain this to me. This is the straight man dynamic of Bernie Mac is flawless.
Yeah.
It's just like having to tolerate this guy, and not always. I like that it does kind of lead you to like think, okay, he I think one of the best exchanges was the back and forth when he reported into what he had. It's just like, what do you have? Nothing. It's just, I don't. I'm not doing it justice, but the back and forth between them when he gives like the mission report in, is just there's a good chemistry there. And apparently Bernie Mac was intimidated working with. He was intimidated working with John Ritter because John Ritter, of course, he probably loved Three's Company and all the other stuff John Ritter has done. So he was like a little intimidated by a guy with that magnitude of success.
Yeah, no, what I think was really interesting as time goes by, like it's not like a automatic or even it's not that like his personality changes because oftentimes that is kind of like an easy way. It's like, oh, like you go from this very misanthropic guy to a very like cheery, like complete outside external depiction. Rather for Billy Bob Thornton's character, it's just kind of he's a little bit more softer in his delivery, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah,
he still has like the rough edges, but they're slightly smoothed out.
yeah. I mean, the little gestures count, in a big way. But then, of course, we also at the same time we do have to bring him to a low point where it's kind of seeing the progression there. Where okay, so Jin blackmails him. So the next day, by the way, when they're shooting this, apparently the way the legend goes, Billy Bob Thornton when he comes up on that escalator.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably, I don't know if it's just for the escalator shot or maybe for that scene along with the manger destruction scene. Um, Billy Bob Thornton's actually drunk on set during that.
Really?
Yeah, that's a thing. So he's at the very least when he's going up that escalator, he is absolutely liquored up. Now I don't know if when he's destroying the manger if he's liquored up, but when he's going up that escalator,
Man,
legitimately drunk.
I like I get you want to be in a certain state of mind and
Like it
try.
was intense. It wasn't like he wasn't like this drunk period. I'm saying it was for that scene.
No,
He
no, no.
actually played drunk.
I get that. I get that wanting to go slightly method, but man, you as a director, if an actor wants to do something like that, like I kind of would be super hesitant, especially in light of like because you have like a lot of kid actors, like if not just actors on set, like I don't want my actor to get injured or seriously hurt or whatnot. So I feel like the director must have had a lot of confidence that like things will escalate. Although probably Billy Bob Thornton's like enough of a professional at that time and even now to like not drink too far.
Yeah. Apparently he drank all like a lot of different things too. Like oh god, I'm trying to remember like what the drink combination was, but it was like a few beers and there was like god there was a little bit of whiskey. There was something else. It was a kind of a concoction of sorts.
Like vodka or
I don't
scotch.
know if I scotch maybe, but there was like some sort of fancy drink too. I just can't. I don't know what. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to look it up. It's not that hard to find out what it was. I don't know what it is offhand though. Anyway, so yeah, so he's drunk as a skunk and like he destroys the manger and everything. We have this hilarious like exchange between Jin and the and Marcus about the whole like we'll go get him out of here. This is like okay, you're gonna need to help me. This is like I'm the I'm 3 foot tall.
Yeah,
Like
that was
draw me a
funny.
diagram of how I can do that.
Yeah, Bernie Mac is like, oh, you're disabled. You expect all sorts of stupid. It's like, dude, I'm 3 foot tall. I have physics. Sketch me out a plan of how I take this guy to his car.
Oh, it's so funny. I just love these. I got best. I love that he can insult Bernie Mac and get away with it. Because Bernie Mac always has like the final word and things. That's kind of like that's kind of the style of his comedy. But see him kind of speechless after that. Like, well, yeah, what's he gonna do? He can't really. He has to put the sign up and get him out of there.
I would have loved maybe a montage of like Marcus trying to like take Willie out of the chair and all the different ways he could get it done.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. So after that, and again, this is what I'm saying with like the progression there. So we have that, and then we see, Willie. He, he's at a low point. He tries to kill himself. Carbon monoxide in the car.
Yeah, that was, whew, man, that was a very dark scene. And then the kid coming in and just like, hey, what are you doing? It's just like, are you did you give out? Are you not working today? It's like, yeah, no. And it's just, and then he hands him the note, and it's just like, oh my god, this is like, this truly is the low point for this character.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love though. Oddly say that during suicide scene. I love that he is.
He killed it.
Yeah, he did. Rohith. He almost killed it. No, he did a really good job. Anyway, I love that he sees like the black guy. He knows these bullies have been like wedging and harassing poor Thurman. So he comes, he gives him a reason to live. He comes back because he got to set things right with this kid before he offs himself. So he's beating the crap out of these teenage bullies
Mhm.
that wedged the kid, and then that leads to the boxing scene. So you get a sense, though. Yeah, what do you think? Do you think we needed the boxing scene, or like? What do you like it? Do you think it was like maybe a smart cut in the director's cut? Like,
I think for the boxing scene, the whole thing was just like hitting people in the nuts.
yeah, I mean
And then the follow up is like at the end of the movie where the kid like hits him in the balls or kicks the balls. I
yeah,
feel like if we didn't have the boxing scene, that joke maybe would have been even more funnier because of how unexpected that is. But
yeah.
but if you're watching it, it's like, oh, the kid's gonna do the kick in the balls thing, right? Because like that's kind of expected. But if you didn't have that boxing scene, then that scene would have like have been funny because just how like unexpected the response would be. Uh,
I can respect just how that scene works in a vacuum, but I respect how it works in a vacuum. I like the aspect of okay, Willie wants to help the kid. And it's sort of almost like a mentor perennial thing. If they want this kid to be able to defend himself without me, so it's like basically what's the worst version of the Karate Kid we could ever do here? So they just go pared down the one scene. Like, I want you to just try and take out my 3 foot tall friend. That'll help you out with self defense.
Oh yeah.
And then it's just completely gets botched and everything. I got him at this. Just this sound awful. I love from a physical comedy standpoint when Tony Cox goes down. Just the fact that his whole legs just like go down one fell swoop, just with the thud. Just the way that stunt works, I just love it.
And like, he wants to get this really nice scarf off of the mannequin. They can't
Yeah,
reach it, so he just takes like the golf club from another mannequin that uses it to like basically chop wood, or in this case, chop plastic to like have like the equivalent of like timber. But
the man knows how to use his size, and I
oh
dig
yeah,
it. All right, let's see. So, okay, let's see. So again, and in reaching, so then we kind of reach the low point there, where like we learn Thurman's name, Thurman Merman, on the report card. And this is where it's very impressive when you think about it. This whole movie, he did not correct the whole Santa thing. He's been playing into it with the kid. He hasn't been like necessarily lying to him, but he's just, well, I mean, he hasn't been like lying to him. He's just been like giving some swarmy, like, kind of answers. But he just spells it out for him. I'm not Santa.
yeah,
And it's the fact that the kid knows is, I know, but I thought you give me a present because we're friends. And I just love like this kid lobs these questions in such a way that guts Willie to the core, to the fact that this guy always is like a smart guy response. He's silent.
yeah. No, it's really shows that an awareness on the part of the director and the writers of the movie to not have this kid be like one note. Like this kid has like dimensions to him that over the course of the movie you get to know more as like as we in kind of in Woolie's shoes just get to know sort of odd things that really stand out for someone of his age.
Yeah. So it's interesting dichotomy here. Some people I know, they have an issue with the tone shift of this movie. I don't get everything with tone shifts. Sometimes when it's done like it is in this film, I like a counterbalance. I view it as a counterbalance where we have a nice sequence. I think kind of that demonstrates this, where Marcus kills Jin really brutally, cleverly but brutally. He pins him against with the jumper cable thing. It kind of pins him, kills him. But then we juxtapose all that darkness with Willie, this formerly dark character, at least this dark character, kind of starting to come out of it little by little. He's in the Christmas spirit essentially as Santa Claus, kind of the self-fulfilling prophecy in a very unconventional sense of him slowly till the very end becoming Santa Claus. Where he's doing the popcorn for the tree. They're using grandma's smelly stockings. It's like the stockings. They have like the little paper bag things that they're lighting. It's very nice. It's very nice, and like I said, it's a taste of the life that he denied himself all these years.
Yeah, and then it's kind of near the end of the movie where he's just like trying to recreate Chris's traditions, but obviously in a way that's like true to the character, true to the rating. It's like he takes like grandma's little stockings to put as like Christmas stockings. He like basically like grabs Lauren Graham's butt and then just unzips as she's putting it on the Christmas tree, all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So again, it's an unconventional way, but again, it's like he's getting into the holiday spirit.
Hmm.
You know. So anyway, so then he kind of like Santa Claus. He's got to work on Christmas Eve, but he promises he'll be back and to eat the sandwiches. So we see the heist, and I love the curveball we throw at the heist. This whole movie's been built around, okay, so he's going to open the safe like he did in the opening. So we have the Kittner boy readout. And this is a safe. It's like the uncrackable safe, and he's just as Marcus is like he's like taking all the stuff from the sales floor. He's just been working on this safe, and just by sheer fancy, it's by sheer luck he gets it.
Yeah, I love the sequence, the back and forth between him trying to open the safe and like Marcus trying to get that first scarf.
Yeah, like, as we kind of went through, yeah. So also, the elephant. So we should talk about like the purple and pink elephant things. The fact that Thurman he wanted this gift, so he goes there to get the elephant. That's essentially what saves his life too. By the way, 'cause he just like waited there, wish would have been shot, but him getting that gift for that kid kind of like helped. Well, his dynamic with that kid, period, saved him obviously because the whole letter thing. But the confession letter was meant as a suicide note, got sent to the police. Um, but just the fact that like him going for this elephant, which by the way, if you're paying attention to the movie, he does get the wrong elephant because the kid changed his mind from pink to purple, but he ends up getting the pink.
Yeah, I was wondering if he was gonna get both, and then the fact that he chose the pink one, it's like, I mean, it kind of reflects that like he knew what the kid was looking for, but wasn't paying close attention to like the exact details. So
Again, the effort does
no, but I
the
think that's
effort's
kind of the point. It's
appreciated.
like he's not exactly 100% a perfect, upstanding guy, but he pays attention and remembers enough details to like get by or to win over or be on like this on the side that we the audience is rooting for, and just the way that like Billy Bob Thornton's character just the more he gets. I think the scene that really stood out to me was like when the kid come down with his cut, and
Mhm.
then he has to look at it, and then he pours alcohol in it. And it's like, oh, I should have told you that like it'll sting a bit. The way he kind of has like not fully paternal, but some like level of like, hey, this comes up as an adult trying to take care of a kid who's like hurt this really badly. Um, that I felt was like good acting on the part of Billy Bob Thornton because then it's like okay, you're starting to see a change where maybe his personality is the same, but his values and kind of his focus or north star is like having the kid be safe, and then the kid be put in a better position than he was beforehand. And with the so here's the thing. This is the kind of where I what I wanted to talk about in regards to the kids. Like the scene where the kid comes with the black eye. It's like I was expecting him. I think if this were to happen earlier in the movie, he'd be like, "Oh, like yeah, you stand up for yourself, blah blah blah." But he has such a strong emotional connection with this crew that we've highlighted or know about. Like for Billy Bob Thornton's character Willie, he now has that kind of like change in his values, change in his orientation, North Star. And I think when we get to the traditional Christmas Eve, the Christmas music, like there is that kind of feeling that like this is this is it for him, and he would be happy with it. Especially when I think to like um when Marcus is holding the gun at him, and it's like, and Willie's like, "Do you really need all this stuff?" And that's such an interesting term of phrase because it's like Willie like is not really super materialistic as a person before and after his like morality change, but it does kind of lead to sort of this idea in Christmas about like how oftentimes people get sucked into the consumerist aspect of the Christmas holidays and not the aspect of like being together and embodying the spirit of Christmas.
Yeah, it's in. I mean, look at what we even have presented. Like, what does he take? He does he takes just the elephant. It's like he's not about. It's like don't get me wrong. He wants a payday. He wants the cash, but like it'd
Mhm.
be the cash and like like just what he needs. Like he's not gonna like. Usually, what he needs is booze, but that's the thing. He doesn't really. He only steals exactly what he needs. He's not stealing in excess or being greedy about it necessarily.
Yeah,
But
the
yeah, you're right though. I mean, him being, I like just that progression of like he's become an unconventional Santa Claus reluctantly. So, like, think about it, he destroys the advent calendar, but he repairs it. But of
mhm,
course, he screws up. He's putting like candy corn in it, and you have, again, like he's
aspirin,
I'm sorry. Oh,
and
and
he
aspirin, yeah, and aspirin. And then later, you have it's the fact the whole film's climax is him again wearing this suit for the whole movie. And all these been stuck in the suit. We kind of find fun reasons for him to be stuck in the suit the whole movie because you have a waitress who likes him in the suit. He needs it for the con, and I mean he's staying at a house where he doesn't really have really clothes of his own. Now he does change out of it occasionally, but really it's like an undersuit and just maybe what's left in the father's closet that he's staying in at that house, presumably.
Mhm.
So it's the fact that he's now kind of buying into it, like the Grinch's heart growing three sizes that day, practically. He's now it's Santa Claus delivering a gift on Christmas Eve. That's essentially what our crescendo is here. Where he's fleeing the police to deliver this elephant. It's the last thing he does, and almost is
And he got shot like
8 times.
yeah.
He got shot 8. Honestly, I count 11, but I guess some of those are misfires. Here's the thing: he says 8 bullets were taken out. Maybe he was shot 11 times, and like a couple of them were through and through. I don't know, but the point
Or
being,
like a couple of them stay on his body.
sure. Also, this was also a thing too, where the director hated this. I assume he hated this. Probably didn't hate as much as the boxing scene, but the studio really forced that line. This kid's uh, it's Christmas, and this kid's getting his present. Like he was still driving. I'm saying he didn't say anything originally in the cut. That's a change too. Like the studio wanted, like we got to have a silly line to go with this visual.
I can understand the director being.
I like the line though because again it really hits home that okay he's becoming Santa Claus right now for a moment.
I
Yeah,
guess, but I feel like with Billy Bob Thornton's character being still a reluctant anti-hero, I don't think he would do the whole classic like line silly line thing. I think probably the director would just want him to like express more of his moral change through his actions and his behavior rather than just a few lines that like some person said, you know.
yeah. So let's see. Anyway, well, you got to remember too. I mean, assuming you have to assuming there's a voiceover at the end, even if we cut out the one at the top. Um, but you have to because otherwise, like we're the assumption is that there was an additional thing where instead of Thurman on the bike, he was cleaning the blood off the porch or the
Yeah.
stoop or whatever. So that implies, like, assuming we didn't have like any monologue at the end, and we just saw him clean up that blood. The suggestion is, oh, we just actually killed him off.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that
That's
way.
the thing I got. That's what I got. I really meant to look into. Really should look into that for the director's cut and see like if there's a voiceover at the end or not because you have to. I have to assume there is. Otherwise, it's a very different ending.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so Santa Claus is shot 8 times by the cops in front of kids. By the way, and Santa Claus is very unarmed. He's literally crawling to deliver a gift. Very traumatizing to the kids, and I love that it's traumatizing enough. One for our dramatic purposes. Two, just to show like, okay, how can he get the get out of jail free card? Because yeah, these cops have really traumatized all these kids royally.
Oh yeah.
They have a lot of damage control to do here.
Yep.
It's very fitting. And yeah, like presumably this is like if this were the end of a tragedy. I mean, it is a very artfully tragic way to end our story here until we have that like nice happy ending.
Yeah, I thought he was a goner when he got.
I know.
I could definitely imagine though that they probably. I think they would. You would need a monologue at the end because then you have to explain like, or because I feel like test screening audiences would be like, "Hey, what happened to Billy Bob Thornton's character?" Like
Well,
he's
he
trying.
got shot 8 times. Who's gonna walk away from that? He's dead.
Yeah, I wonder. I think probably test screening audiences might have saw that and weren't satisfied, and then that's why he has like the miraculous happy ending. I guess they probably try to have their cake and eat it too, or at least maybe the director tried to have a cake and eat it too, where it's like he's got seriously injured and it's just like not a stage to be out and about in the world.
Yeah. So it's the fact that like like the cops they basically turned like a sensitivity counselor where he's like going to he's going around basically laying out like how horrible things like this could, like can be avoided like one of those like kind of almost an apology tour for the cops.
Yeah.
I like the fact like through a letter too like the fact he's kind of writing to the kid about all this and it's like him talking to Thurman It's nice, and him saying, like, miss, we set up that Lauren Graham character, she'll be hanging around the kids, so it's like the makeshift family's still there, like she'll take care of you and grandma, Mrs. Santa's sister, she might even buy you something if you're nice to her.
Just
And
keep his hat on.
oh yeah, with the Christmas hat on, yep. And then we end with the kid kicking the bully in the balls, very very deserved, and he's going off with the with the crap happens when you party naked shirt as he's flipping him off.
Yeah, it's him doing all that. It's like I think the report card was to indicate that like he wasn't stupid. He was just a little bit naive. And
Mm-hmm.
now like the way he presented himself is like, okay, this guy's definitely going to be like a prominent part of whatever place that like Thor that it's a for the kid just kind of like comparing what he was at the beginning, where he comes in, he's like snot nose, he's just kind of like basically like a doormat, and then now he's like has a nice bike. He kicked his bully in the balls, and he just flipped him off as he's biking away. It's like clearly like Willie's influence kind of rubbed off of him, not just being self confident, but having a bit of an edge.
Yeah, which I mean, it's refreshing. The kid was kind of clay to be molded to a degree, and I think it's I don't know. It feels obviously it feels a little like, oh man, it's kind of like a maybe not the best moral to impart there, but it feels right for this movie.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder if maybe there was like a legitimate, well thought out sequel where maybe like the kid was the main focus, and like it's his dad that's trying to like deal with his son, kind of being molded by like a different father figure.
Yeah, that's not how that goes, sadly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen that sequel, my friend, and it does not live up to its full potential, unfortunately. I mean, Thornton's great in it. I mean, Thornton's having a great time. It's just the director and the writers did not return for it, and it shows.
that sounds about right.
I'm saying like Swidoff, he is since this is like an indie guy. Plus, he was think about it, like his first big studio movie, and it got messed with in a way they really didn't like. So I don't know what he did. I don't know if Bad Santa was his last movie or not. But the fact of the matter is, he probably did not. I don't imagine he went on to do studio movies after this experience, or at the very least, I don't think he'd venture out of his comfort zone like he did if he did do other films.
He did Art School Confidential.
Yeah, that was the last. Wait, was that? Yeah, that was. Wasn't
That
that
was
before Bad Santa?
no, that was after Bad Santa. Bad Santa
Oh,
was 3, and Art School Confidential is 2006.
okay. My apologies on that one. But okay, so the point being, this is Art School Confidential, and then did he do anything after that one?
He did a pilot for an Amazon TV show that was like an adaptation of a book. But yeah, he hasn't done any movies since
Plus,
2006.
I think Art School is kind of like going back to the indie roots, though, kind of going back to his usual style versus like a big studio, or at least something that is like in the ballpark of a big studio thing, like Bad Santa. So that's what I'm saying. Like, he's kind of going back to his roots, all the same. But yeah.
Mhm.
Anywho, but yeah, that's I mean that's it. So we've talked about the unconventional classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so in answer to Code Geass anime fans' question in the comments here, is this film better or worse than the sequel? Well, it's far better than the sequel. Yeah, yeah, I can
Yeah,
confirm.
it's so good. It might as well be called Good Santa or Great Santa.
In comparison, yes.
Yeah.
The best thing Bad Santa 2 has going for is Christina Hendricks is in it. That's not that look. I love her, but I don't know if that's not going to save the movie on its own.
Is she like Billy Bob? Is she Willie Stokes' new love interest, or like
I
what's?
mean, love and in physical kind of she has
Uh,
physical chemistry with him. I don't like it's not like a love story, but
like
like
is she like basically Lord Graham's character, or no?
yeah, she's the fill-in for the Lauren Grant. This is what I'm talking about with like the sequel already. Is the fact that we kind of wrote out like the thing of like the idea is like Willie would probably the presumption even like addressed at the top of the sequel. Like, the presumption is like Willie was still hanging out with them afterwards. Like he'd check in on. He said see you soon in the letter to the kid. So he'd check in on the kid once he healed up from the hospital, and they kind of allude to that at the very top of the movie. That there's like a little photo of the three of them in the hospital. which I suspect might have been like a deleted bit or like something that, or like a promotional thing that may or may not have like been from the first movie because they're all like young in the picture. So I don't know if that was like a Photoshop thing or maybe something left over from some iteration of the first film. But yeah, the idea is like, he just, it's basically him saying like happy endings are crap, and that's basically here's the new status quo. Like, Thurman is around, he is in that movie. It's the same kid too, by the way. He's grown up, which is that's the most interesting aspect of the film to me. But aside from that, you have like Christina Hendricks basically, being like she's having an affair with him, but that's really as far as it goes. Like, but there's a little thing where he's thinking about Lauren Graham because that was like the most positive relationship he had, where it's like call me Santa while they're doing it. He wants her to call him Santa because he's thinking of her, and that was like the one time he was really happy in life. Is kind of the idea.
Man, that sounds both sad and funny at the same time, but I feel like the movie's probably not good enough to accomplish that either.
No,
Yeah.
that's the thing. I mean, look at that's what I'm saying. Like Christina Hendricks, like sex scenes are funny, but there's like, it's not like what we have here.
Yeah.
Like there's no there's no change. There's no like plus size women's department gag in that one.
Hmm.
Anyway, so yeah, that brings us to the end of this. I guess just kind of in closing on some final thoughts on this. Again, look, uh, Bad Santa is unconventional, but I do think I think it's an appropriate finale for Season Shenanigans this year because it is one you wouldn't necessarily go to, but it's one it's heralded for being it's heralded for being kind of like this kind of the scuffed diamond in the rough, one could say. Like, it's kind of either people are either turning their noses up at it, or there it's kind of like the cloud freezing kind of raunchy comedy around the holidays. It's I think it's earned I think it's earned discussion. I think it's very much like it's a pillar in like whether it be in home video or just like people like Bad Santa has like the definitive like skinny Santa Claus like visual. It's like Billy Bob Thornton. Every time you see like a skinny Santa Claus, a part of you in the back of your mind is thinking Bad Santa. It's a time tested thing. The skinny Santa is like there's something off about this, and well, now we know why. It's kind of it's kind of built into the lexicon to a degree. You have the Grinch and you have Bad Santa. Like, those are like the dark sides of Christmas story.
Hmm. Yeah, honestly, this movie, for what it is, I think it's a movie that is kind of fun to watch. Like maybe not I don't know if I would necessarily rewatch it on my own after watching it for the first time. I think it's a movie that's kind of fun to watch with other people to see kind of their reactions for the first
Yeah.
time to a lot of the stuff in this movie because a lot of it is like crass and darkly humorous. There's a lot of things that are subversive in nature. So I think part of it is like it's like there's certain movies you want, like horror movies you want to watch with friends to see it, like their reactions or scares, or certain comedies. This is kind of like you're really curious to see like which people have like uh, a certain open mindedness to like things being very dark and funny at the same time, and or just complete rigidity. And either reaction is kind of just interesting in and of itself. um so yeah, I think this movie, I think you made a good point, Dragon. Like when it came out sort of in this time period in pop culture, and especially post 9/11, not just to bring the mood down, but to provide some historical context, where the American public was more open to less clean cut heroes and more, not necessarily heroes, but just antisocial, anti-heroic, characters that didn't have just conventional like Jimmy Stewart motivations or demeanors, that were both prominent in film and especially television with like The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, like 24, all that stuff, that kind of, and The Shield, that like permeated the zeitgeist. So I think for I think it is kind of interesting. Like Batman is kind of like a time capsule of a certain pop cultural like obsession or trend. And nowadays, I think about it this way. Think of it this way, Dragon. If this movie was made nowadays, I don't think it would. It would have to be structured really differently, and like some of the things that weren't questioned at that time would be questioned now. Like Would Willie Stokes really be able to get a job as ball Santa with like background checks being relatively
It
more
can
thorough?
only exist at this time.
Yeah, yeah.
Plus, I mean, a lot of course, nowadays we do much, like the world's a much darker, more cynical place. So, like, like we're in a post boys world to a degree. It's like, what, how do we really, shock and awe anyone? I mean, you know,
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's like this. I think the angle nowadays would probably be less on like Billy Bob Thornton's character Willie Stokes. He'd probably be more like the dark comedy of like the holiday itself, if that makes sense.
yeah. All right, all right, folks. Well, first of all, I want to thank folks who tuned in. Sorry for the delay in starting. I want to thank Little Blue, Code Geass Anime Fan, and Richard's Victims for tuning in. Of course, Rohith for joining us this evening.
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks, time to dash away, dash away, dash away all. But as we wave goodbye, don't you cry. We'll be back again next year. Merry Christmas.
For even more seasonal shenanigans.
Fa la 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 la.